impromptu live stream. It's an emergency meeting, people. It is not. But I thought people out there in the cryptocurrency space, for some reason, just don't care and don't seem to understand what is taking place. Now, before I continue, it is very clear, it is very clear to me that I don't understand logic too well. So I thought, well, let's review what logic is, okay? So logic, what is the law of logic? A law of logic is a fundamental principle governing valid reasoning. The three classical laws are, you can tell this is live. Law of identity. A thing is itself. A equals A. Law of non-contradiction. A statement cannot be both true and false at the same time. A cannot be both A and not A, or not negative A. Law of excluded middle. A statement is either true or false, with no middle ground, either A or not negative A. So these are the laws that underpin coherent thought augmentation. Now, I think this is kind of relevant to maybe the cryptocurrency space, because sometimes people will say they hate XYZ or they won't cover XYZ, but yet at the same time tell their audiences later on how much they're for freedom of speech or how much they're so a part of some sort of mission to bring about freedom of speech, most likely in the current currency, the country that they come from. Now, HEX, Pulse Chain, Pulse X, arguably now is US based. Now, I myself am not. However, I still have great interest in this topic. So let's continue on. So we've covered what is law of logic and why sometimes it is funny that people tell me or I hear on feeds that they are not going to talk about HEX or don't believe in cryptocurrency, but yet at the same time they believe in freedom of speech, or at the same time they believe in, this cause or that cause, but not this cause or that cause because they hate this token or they don't like the participants or the community of this token or whatever. But at the same time, like I said, they're trying to bring about freedom of speech around the world, arguably. To me, that's illogical, because if there is something, no matter how much you hate it, no matter how much you despise it, you think it's a cult, whatever, it's a scam, it's a fraud, whatever you think, right? But then it turns out it's illogical because, law of non-contradiction, law of excluded middle, or maybe law of identity. Maybe they're not understanding these fundamental concepts. Now, I guess that's just basically me recapping some of the stuff I'm reading, which was interesting. People, I don't know, what people in Hexaco, in Pulse Chain, Pulse X, whether or not you're here for whatever reason, whatever it may be, whether or not you're having identity crises or whatever, whether or not you just want to make gains, because most people do, it is funny to me that they won't touch this cryptocurrency with a 10-foot pole. But then finally, it comes through that, where is it? We saw a post recently. I'll share this tab. Thank you if anyone's actually watching this. I'll check the chat as well. All right. Now, basically, we saw this tweet here, and I'm not a lawyer. Didn't understand what a lot of this meant. So I thought I would, have it explained to me in plain English so I could logically understand what is taking place. What is taking place is something that's never happened before in cryptocurrency. But yet, I don't know if it's because we've been labeled, similar to conspiracy theorists, but maybe we've been labeled Hexicans, Polskins, Polsexicans. And that's why people won't listen to you, because they've demonized you and, called you a crazy loon bird because you're a Hexican. You wear the Hexican hat or the Polskin hat or the Pulse Chain hat or whatever. And for that reason, it doesn't seem to be getting as much traction as I would have thought. Maybe it's just not as relevant as I thought, because, I'm kind of, when it comes to following global trends, I've been lacking a little bit lately. I've basically turned off all forms of media. And when important things come to me, half the time it's not actually important because it doesn't actually affect me as much as some people would have you believe. Now, going back to this tweet here, basically about an hour ago or so, it says from the Richard Hart account, we don't know who controls it. I don't. I have a theory that maybe it's managed in some way, shape, or form. I don't know. Now, that's not the point. The point is, it says here, I beat the SEC in court. The SEC did not drop its case against me. The judge completely dismissed their case for both failure to state claim and lack of jurisdiction. This is why Pulsechain, PulseX, and HEX gained legal certainty that almost no other coin has, even Ethereum. And no one cares about this in the cryptocurrency space, right? Which I find interesting because I would have thought, maybe. Well, we'll go on and read. It says here, the judge also rejected the SEC's abandoned alter ego theory. This is a victory for open source software, free speech, Pulse, PulseX, HEX, and himself. Now, I think this comes off the back of, I'm pretty certain, using logic best I can here, I'm pretty certain this comes off the back of this ruling and then the date that passed, basically saying that the time, where is it? I can't even think. This here. Let's have a look at this article instead of me adding my whatever to it, because I don't think I'm qualified or have had enough sleep to do so. Now, HEX founder Richard Hart gets clean shit as SEC walks away, reportedly from Market News. From CryptoTimes.io, I have no idea who these guys are, but they came out pretty quick with this article. It says Richard Hart, the infamous founder of HEX, Pulsechain, and PulseX, is celebrating a clean chit in the SEC lawsuit, as the US regulator is not intending to file an amend complaint on the previous dismissed case. So my understanding, my logic is that Richard Hart, HEX, Pulsechain, PulseX, the SEC lost, and there was a time frame in which they could potentially file amendment to complaint, which they did not. So they, in essence, admitted defeat because it was dismissed and the SEC lost and they were defeated, best to my knowledge. Now, as reported in this article, and this is my interpretation. Now, while sharing the latest post on X, Hart revealed that SEC has notified the court to not go further with the lawsuit and does not intend to file an amendment complaint. The lawyers out there can, pick this to pieces. While the deadline to file an amended complaint has expired, so you can't go back in time. Richard Hart, Pulsechain, PulseX, and HEX have defeated the SEC completely and have achieved regulatory clarity that no other coins have, he said, as we just read before, citing a tweet which we didn't look at, but we're now looking at here. So today the SEC notified. So this is bouncing through. Today, SEC notified the court that does not intend to file an amendment complaint, and their deadlines to do it has expired. The court previously dismissed the SEC's entire case. Richard Hart, Pulsechain, PulseX, and HEX have defeated the SEC completely and have achieved regulatory clarity that nearly no other coins have. They're now safer to work with in ways that almost no other coins are. The SEC walked away from some other cryptocurrency cases voluntarily, but this is the only case where the SEC lost and crypto won across the board with the dismissal in court of every single claim the SEC brought. This is a victory for open source software, cryptocurrency, and free speech. The SEC actually sued software code itself in this case, claiming it could be an alter ego of a person. This would have set a terrible precedent and caused perhaps multiple billions of dollars of damage to the vital open source and free software industry that powers most of the internet and your speech on it. Okay, so to pause here and realize that I myself sacrificed for freedom of speech, and I had no expectations. And many years later, look what happened. Look what the end result was. Was this planned? I have no idea. Did it turn out pretty good? I think it could have turned out a lot better in terms of price. But other than price, I think that's a pretty good win. That is a great win. That is like 10 out of 10 possible result in terms of, the precedent that had been set for people all around the world. For some reason, people do not cover it. They don't want to cover it. I don't really. That's their free will to do so. But for people who understand cryptocurrency at all, news outlets, financial outlets, for them to understand this sort of shit and to turn a blind eye to it makes me wonder why that is and sort of what is the industry really like. As we've seen previously, many people who talk about get their influencer status often take a fee for it. Here in the Pulse chain ecosphere, I guess, I cannot think of not one, who takes any fee for anything. Now, I do wonder about a lot of this other stuff that's not HEX, not Pulse chain, not Pulse X, not IFC, not Richard Hart related. But then that's a completely different matter, because some people out there will go around talking about everything under the sun, things go wrong, and then they're stuck with the words that they spoke. That was their logic. They're free to do so. I, for one, do not think I don't agree with some of the logic, because, like I said, if we go back to logic, and the law of logic is a fundamental principle governing valid reasoning. There are three classical laws. They are law of identity. A thing is itself, right? Law of non-contradiction. A statement cannot be both true and false at the same time. A cannot be both A and not A. So if someone believes in freedom of speech and they believe in cryptocurrency, they can then not say and not they cannot filter and just decide willy-nilly at random what it is they're going to talk about. Media, I'm not what do you call it, mainstream media crypto outlets, they basically buried their head in the sand until they got the result. And maybe they're in shock and awe at the moment. They can't believe that, oh, wow, actually, they lost the case at the SEC. Or maybe everyone was pro SEC and anti-free speech that they decided not to cover and get behind anything. That in itself is quite concerning, because I'm like, hang on, I thought this cryptocurrency stuff was kind of cool, and I thought everyone in the environment, in the space, was kind of cool. And I'm like, hang on, it seems to be a whole lot of people taking a whole lot of fees, talking about a whole lot of shit that I don't really care about. Now, the law of excluded middle. A statement is either true or false with no middle ground, either A or not negative A. So these laws underpin coherent thought and argumentation. We'll wrap up very soon. So I'm running out of things to say without creating some grandiose, inspirational speech about nonsense. When just to boil it all down, it's really becoming more evident to me in day, what is it, 1969? Yeah. In cryptocurrency, which is how old's Bitcoin now? I'm not sure. Maybe pushing 16 years. HEX is like 5 years old. Pulse chain is maybe a year, 2 years old now. Price is currently this. Now, let's have a look at prices. It would not surprise me from here. Now, I know there's a lot of people, whales out there, whatever, that hold large bags of this cryptocurrency and waiting to dump, and have been feeling absolutely distraught, maybe, or maybe their bags are not as heavy as they once were. The thin liquidity as well is pretty interesting to watch, because as things have been dying, bleeding out, whatever. People selling exiting the system may have felt. This is all my personal thoughts, by the way. I haven't even verified any of this on chain, so please correct me if I'm wrong in the chat or whatever. 70 pieces. If the low liquidity has been played out and we hit some sort of low, all-time low, fingers crossed, with Pulse X, INC, and HEX, maybe in light of the whole PDI exploitation that people just refuse to acknowledge, it has crossed my mind that maybe we've hit some sort of low in the low liquidity, and basically it would not surprise me if price go up forever from here. However, that is making, using logic that is like very vague and could go either way. So that fails some of the logic test. It's sort of a open sort of psychic reading. I think if sacrifice funds are deployed in any way, shape, or form to, I would say, Pulse X, INC, HEX, I'm not even sure if there's a formula or if someone's gone through and with certain LPs calculated. Now, I've seen some numbers out there that have shown this is how much X amount injected into the system, combined with X amount of selling pressure, what prices could look like at that point in time. I do wonder if those figures are relevant moving forward into the future. Like, will we see sacrifice funds actually used on this? I mean, it's really, it kind of sucks, because then you're kind of going, well, the system's not going to pump unless sacrifice funds are deployed. And I would like the larger cryptocurrency space to realize what is taking place, with a huge win against the SEC, an amazing precedent set. And therefore you should, based on that, support some cryptocurrencies. However, I can't help but think that while my camera shits itself live on stream and switches between two different cameras, we'll see if it works when it comes back, I can't help but think that people are so jaded against the hexagons for whatever reason that they will almost refuse to, I don't know, like they don't want to buy any of this. They'll just, if they received it for free, most likely they'll dump it because they go, what is this? I don't know. I don't care. Dump. Which could be the case. Now, I can see the point in being a validator at this point in time, because back in the day, like I said, I used to want to be a Dash, I can't remember what it was, node provider, because of the yield it provided. People back in the day will still possibly currently mine BTC, in hopes of getting those rewards. Similar to Ethereum, however, that's proof of stake now, whatever. Similar to Pulse chain, but I don't know. I just feel as if people outside the community don't fully understand some angles of Pulse chain, Pulse X, INC, and HEX that are out there. Now, people, I'm not sure I do, because I've covered every single content creator and followed in depth what is going on, what's new and shiny, and then maybe researched into what it is they believe in, or do they have any beliefs? Is it even relevant? Because just because someone has a certain diet doesn't mean I'm gonna not listen to them because they have a certain diet or something like that. Like, that's the only thing I can think of. I don't believe cryptocurrency should be straying into those realms unless you blatantly see like cryptocurrency people come out saying, I believe, you should all not have free speech, and I believe you should all just die. It's like, I don't think that's a good approach. I think bad green candles from here, moving into the future, slowly, steadily, would be nice to see. I think that would create some hype around fucking the ecosphere that may have died out many, many moons ago. Because how much can I sit here and really, really drone on about HEX, Pulse Chain, PulseX, INC, and then after the yield got stripped, after the OA staked, then with the low LP, then with the huge win, the defeat of the SEC, you would think what follows next? Logically, what follows next to me in my mind is, again, this isn't following logic though. This is like a wish almost. This is like moon math sort of positive feel good stuff, which may not come true due to logic, because if no one's buying this stuff, it's not going anywhere, and if everyone's selling, it is what it is. Now, I do remember a thing called a staking ladder, and basically you have three options when the staking ladders end, and they still are. You sell it all, you scrape the gain that you get, or you restake it all. Now, curiously enough, I remember going through and timing the ladders to end stake before large end stakes would come through. And then I sat and I wondered why every time my stakes ended, then not long after, it felt as if the price would always go down. And I'm sitting there thinking, fuck, I set all this shit up and I didn't even make any notes as to why I set it all up and why the dates are here. So based on that, you do an AI search, and it goes through and explains to you that so far, from its understanding, what could have been the best play, and this sounds absurd for even me to say out loud, but so far what the best play would have been to sell it all when you basically mint it and then wait for the price to go down, and you could have bought more. Again, 2020 vision, hindsight, and all of that. But that would have been the optimal play, because if you had have caught some of the higher highs, you would have locked in those gains. So then, building on top of that, you have the sacrifice phase that took place primarily for Pulse and PulseX. Now, they took place and attracted many eyes, not investors, but many people who believe in the freedom of speech, the freedom to move where one wants to, etc., etc. Maybe it attracted complete degens to the space who just wanted a quick flip, like I did myself with HEX and Big Payday. But yet 5+ years later, I'm still here waiting patiently for I don't know, when would I pull the pin? Multiple millions would probably be a very close point, to question whether or not like, what am I still doing here? Like, if you made multi-millions off any cryptocurrency, and your your objective is to make, I don't know, it would be to make, you want to keep making more money. Everyone loves money, right? And then at some point you think they would have some sort of side hustle to try and make the world a better place, whether it be some sort of charity, donations, I don't know. But you'd really start to think, if you're that, once you get to those levels of wealth, I think your perception may change just a little. You might have a lot more free time as well, and then what are you going to do with that time? Is it going to be constructive or not, or destructive? It could amplify your characteristics, whatever they are. In saying that, this is me visualizing the future. I get the feeling that we could see. This is very like, again, tarot card reading esque, but I can't help but feel if people notice this huge win against the SEC, if people notice, why people aren't talking about this, like how are they aligned to freedom of speech if they're not even talking about this huge win for freedom of speech? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. I guess they're trying to cover. I'm not sure if this knowledge has been lost, but if you go back and have a look at what the Hexicans is, like the Jedi's or the Sith or something from Star Wars, is like, if you go back and have a look what the Hexicans sort of were uncovering, revealing, teaching, it's a very different group think that is now the case. Because I think what happened, in my opinion, is Hexicans kind of got together and realizes, wow, crypto is really cool, and there's a lot of us, and many people, I think, had been previously burnt by scams, so they're very cautious. And then what else? As price went up, people became very conscious about security, and building off the back of that, people were very conscious about, operational security with their holdings of cryptocurrency, as well as avoiding scams, as well as learning and seeing and watching all these assholes appear to try and scam you for your stuff, which continues to this day. And even some of it just with old techniques from like back in 2017, 18 days, and people here way before that. And then it kind of became, the price started going up real hard. And it was fascinating to see because there was a lot of Hexicans, and they seemed to be everywhere. Like online, they had this huge social presence, and it was in no way, shape, or form was it that there any coordination. It was purely just go attack, just go wherever you think it's good, just go and do it. And this huge group of individuals were able to achieve. I've never seen anything like it before in my life. Well, I've never seen anything like it before in my life. Arguably, the 2016 election in the US, but that's kind of different, not cryptocurrency related. Although later on, it turns out maybe people learned about. I don't know how crypto became part of like a political thing. It's really, I don't think it is, because I saw just like to talk about a different little story here. I saw an ad for one of the political parties here in Australia. I can't remember which one it was. What's up, man? And it was like, using the Star Wars analogy, it's like they were talking about the positives of this politician. And I'm looking at it going, if this was the Star Wars movie, books, whatever series, saga, it would be like Darth Vader or one of those guys talking about why you should vote for them. And I'm like, I don't think that's the best. I don't know why. It just hit me like that. I'm like, that's amazing. This is really what we're talking about here. But yeah, I don't know. And now it becomes this whole like cryptocurrency sort of some political thing. And anyway, we saw the Trump coin, which is hilarious. I can't believe I missed out on that because I actually thought he got hacked, and it turned out to be real. That thing's still around. We saw the vacuum bomb kick in, just evaporate all the what would you call it? Economical energy from every crypto wallet in existence, and it attracted all these new users. They basically outdid the Hexicans in that. I've got to give them that. The Trump team, whatever that was, the Trump coin was able to do what Hexicans did, but on crack, like some serious fucking crack. It was insane. I've never seen anything like it. Mind you, the price pulled back, and now, because of that, it does appear as if people are understanding some aspects of cryptocurrency a little bit better, and also that it has enabled maybe a more favorable view on cryptocurrency as a whole. Now, in the midst of all that, which for some reason people were not talking about, was this here. Now, this was supposed to be what I was going to talk about. Was this here? I'll share screen. Basically, this just needs to be drummed in. Like, this is just huge. So, where was I? The story. A story about Hexaco. It's the best that I can remember. So we learned about operational security. We learned about how not to get scammed. We learned how to spot when people were telling the truth or not. So when the founder, Richard Hart, would talk about things that look like scams, if you listen to him, it turned out he was correct in many instances and saved me for a couple of things. I was like, wow, that was really cool. He would have saved many others, but instead, even at that point in time, people were calling hexagons scammers, bots. Can't be real what's taking place. Label everything under the sun. And to me, Hexaco is full of everyone under the sun. So it's not like, I understand how, whilst we're being demonized from everyone under the sun, at the same time, everyone under the sun were participating in Hexaco, were hexagons themselves. So I don't get it. I thought it was going to be some utopia. Everyone from every angle and every lens that they view could have then been used to sort of, spread the wonderful about Hex and how you could get mad gains, and people could have gotten mad gains, and they did get mad gains, and it blew everyone's fucking brains out because of how high the price went in such a short period of time, especially with the sacrifice phase. So we learned a lot there. We saw the ability of jumping on stream, jumping on camera, and talking about various things XYZ. Again, then people were able to feel as if they learned that they weren't alone in this cruel world, and that when everyone gets together and they talk about stuff they all not agree on, but think is cool, it's kind of creates a very good environment to grow and thrive in. Now, this is before the sacrifice phase. Now, we then saw fees go insane. We then saw talks of a sacrifice. Sacrifice came out. Sacrifice phase took place. We saw insane pumps. The pinnacle of the all-time highs for Hex on Ethereum. And we saw the weights. The weight was interesting. Whilst the weight was taking place, another sacrifice came out. I think it was Pulse X. And then we saw, I can't remember which happened first. Then from that point in time, other platforms, protocols were talking about either making completely new protocols or forking protocols. I'm not sure. Pretty sure it was about forking. And for some reason, they felt that, this is to bring some negativity into this space. It changed the whole, not atmosphere, the whole, I don't know what you call it. The stuff that hexagons would talk about became less relevant to everyone, in my opinion, because some people had a lot of gains, and then people figured out that to drain those gains from other people, they might be able to create XYZ, and in essence, trick people to give them their money. I don't know. We saw multiple protocols, being talked of, which was amazing. Better than anything I could build, I'll tell you that. But whether or not it was like positive for the space, I'm pretty sure in my logic it was not. However, I can't say that with certainty with the laws of logic, so it doesn't pass that because I don't know everything. Now, we saw that multiple times. There was a website I used to look at and go, okay, so this is how much was sacrificed for this one, this one, this one, this one. I think then what maybe surprised those teams, people, I have no idea who they are, where they came from, whether they were even Hexkins. They obviously spent money. Now, where those people come from, I'm not sure, like I said, but the weight probably was not beneficial to them. I think we saw software's hard 2 weeks was a thing, and then the community just started to fall apart. We saw some cool stuff like, was it Hydra and Com, things like that. We did see some people like stay and keep talking and talking and talking, and like, that's good, but I know how you did it, man. I know how you guys did it, because at that point in time, there was a lot of hate coming to the space. Like, the sacrifice people were like, because I don't know everything. I just, from my point of view, I'm like, I don't care. Hex good, Hexagons. I learned all this stuff about cryptocurrency. Where I could, I'd try and push back legally, lawfully, peacefully, politically, like pro crypto stuff. And then these other people came from nowhere, started talking about money, taking money. Protocols were reliant on Pulse Chain existing, and Pulse Chain didn't even exist yet. I'm like, is this anyway? So then we waited, sacrifice. Then it actually launched. Yeah, and it was a blur. The wasted year, I call it, for me, because I was sitting on the sideline doing nothing with my LP. So I finally decided to do some INC, but many people would have been getting a lot of INC from LP farms, I assume, especially at launch. And they may have got slightly wrecked on impermanent loss. I'm not sure. That's why I was very hesitant. Like I said, it wasn't like I'm like God wow in this system, so it's not really going to affect. It's like I'm a very small drop in this storm. Then we saw, price go down. People didn't get insta-rich straight away. People could have taken the gains, yep. But then it was just the long, drawn-out sort of, this has come out, 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 this has come out. And I'm like watching, and I'm watching the chart, and I'm watching value being extracted, and I'm like, okay. Maybe I should have participated and maybe made some gains and then extracted, which is, I guess, fair enough, because you're gonna make some gains somewhere. But I don't know, man. I'm looking at the price now, like, ooh. And then everyone used to say the sacrifice funds, they'll get used. And then the lawsuit came along, and then people got like serious shit was happening, and I'm like, oh, what the fuck is going on? It's just everything that I follow. This seems to happen. Like, what is going on here? And then fast forward a lot. And I hope people made money on their platforms that they created. I hope people made money on Hex, Pulse Chain, PulseX, INC, whatever it is. But now we see, after all of this, I don't know if people remember sacrificing for the freedom of speech, like literally, but have a look. So the guy beat the SEC in court. SEC did not drop. Repeating this, I won't cover it before. The SEC did not drop its case against him. The judge completely dismissed their case for both failure to state claim and lack of jurisdiction, because we saw like shit was going crazy, in my opinion. This is why Pulse Chain, like from the SEC side. Now, go back and have a look at some articles there and have a look what was going on. This is why Pulse Chain, PulseX, and HEX gained legal clarity that almost no other coin has, even Ethereum. The judge also rejected the SEC's abandoned alter ego theory. This is a victory for open source software, free speech, PulseX, HEX, and I being, the Richard Hart, I assume, account. I'm sure I missed some stuff along the way, But so now we're in the phase. Then we saw pump.tires, which is kind of interesting. Everyone, in my opinion, there was two things you either love or hate it. I did see some meme coins come out. I had no idea. I just went with my gut and said, all right, this one sounds funny most. Turned out to be, if you look into it, some interesting stuff behind it, some interesting numbers. Price though is not at all time high for any of this stuff, which you could say it's a perfect buying opportunity, but that would be hard because if you've been here for this long, you might be experiencing some sort of burnout. You might be forgetting that you probably started with not much and then it went up a whole lot, like a lot, like what the word was, it mind bending, and then it's come back down a fair bit and brought people back to earth. And hopefully people won't just perma dumping on the system, because if they are low liquidity, that's what's going to happen: low liquidity and low prices. But for the most part, I think people are realizing that maybe there's other, like, what am I trying to say? How much does one need? You can go down that route and say, yeah, well, people are greedy and they take all this money, whatever. Could go there. You could say, well, the system's that fucking large, do whatever you want. My take is you you make a lot of money, you figure out how to use that money to make more money, and then you have this wonderful tool through HEX LP providing. And I guess speculation at this point, because we look at the price now and what that big, like, 5 years story I just went through. If you understand every day of that 5 year as as good as some people do, maybe, just maybe, you're thinking that maybe, just maybe, cool things could happen in this space, like real cool things. Like, especially, like, I used to shit on the theory that we're going to wait for the sacrifice address to just start injecting buyers into the system. But I wouldn't completely rule out that. I think we've seen it previously and a little bit, and we see the price do cool things because there appears to be some economic power behind there. I do wonder if that was the case. Could the sacrifice address, or other people for that matter, taking into account buy and sells, maybe not sacrifice address so much, but could the overall value be used to enhance itself? So what I'm saying is, say you have $1. Numbers aren't a good example. Basically, what I'm saying is, if you take money and inject it into a system that's growing exponentially, like a meme coin, for instance, could you extract, could you create 10 times the wealth on the amount that you inject into a system? Like, say you have a meme coin, it goes up 100,000x. You injected X amount of dollars and it comes back 100,000x more. It's like, well, you could probably take out the amount you put in 2, 3, 40 times. Like, like, I'm just wondering along the lines of that. Archie S says, Ivan and other keeps saying that SEC dropped the case. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I covered that, I think, a little bit before in my own mind. I'm not to shit on Ivan, because I think he's been somewhat pro, like, actually we'll talk about HEX, Pulse Chain, and Pulse X and that for lols. But I don't know who other is, so I can't really talk about that. But it says that people are saying that they conflating it with other SEC dropping versus actual winning. Maybe it'll come out eventually. Maybe they don't fully understand. Maybe they just don't. They need to read this here. Like, I beat the SEC in court. This is from the original hard account. The SEC did not drop the case against me. The judge completely dismissed their case for both failure to state claim and lack of jurisdiction. So maybe people don't understand the words enough, and it's big English, scary dictionary is too hard to use. or legal dictionaries you have to use, but like it's not dropped. It's failure to state claim and lack of jurisdiction. Failure, like you failed, like you had the mission and you failed the mission. You know what happens in games when you fail missions, game over. This is why pulse chain, like, I'm not getting annoyed at you, Archie. I'm just like thinking about people's ability to comprehend this stuff, and it's frustrating because it's a failure to both state a claim and lack of jurisdiction. Like I don't. Also, they rejected the SEC's abandonment, ego theory. And this is a victory for open source software, free speech, and HEX and Pulse and Richard Hunt himself. But like, people don't really want to go into that realm. Maybe they don't understand that yet. But this is why I was talking about. Yeah, this is why I'm just trying to bring to the forefront logic, as like people in crypto, you probably, like, guys already know this, but I'm like saying, law of identity. A thing is itself law of non-contradiction and law of middle excluded middle. So many times you will see, in my opinion, people talk about or not talk about something which, in my opinion, they should talk about, and they should talk about it because I think they're on the same team. I think they're on the same side. I think people maybe have their own interests and are chasing money and are being paid for shit. But those people, in my opinion, I believe they do, have the right. Um, what's it called? They're near the target, and I think they understand crypto is good, but maybe the almighty dollar is better because maybe they've been paid to talk about things, But when something like this comes out, yeah, when something like this comes out, and finally mainstream media, crypto mainstream media, talks about, it's being dismissed. Um, maybe it's the headlines. Maybe lawyers understand this when they read what actually took place. But maybe like a reporter or someone writing an article is just sees it and then just repeat it like a parrot saying dismiss. U.S. judge dismisses, U.S. judge dismisses, and they just repeat that. It was dismissed. It was dismissed. It was dismissed. When actually, what took place, like the black and white here, it says the SEC lost. The SEC did not win. Maybe flip it around on them. I don't know. If anyone is researching any of this stuff, please take the time and look into it and really point out that the SEC lost in court. The SEC did not win. The SEC was so wrong, it was rejected by the judge because and that was a win for open source software and for free speech and for Pulse and for PulseX and for HEX and for Richard Hart himself. But yeah, that's probably not going to get clicks. It's going to get views. People don't care about that. It's not going to make the money. So that's why I find logic interesting, because sometimes people will go against their own logic, not even knowing it, because they get annoyed, they dislike something, or whatever else. They're not paid to talk about it. Could be the case. But hopefully, I guess what I would like to see people from all walks of cryptocurrency, from the evil centralized exchanges and all their minions and research teams and whatever, to understand what took place with Pulse Chain, PulseX, HEX, INC, the win, even the founder himself, the win for Richard Hart, Pulse Chain, PulseX, HEX. Understand that. Understand, I would say their risk is gone from what to what. Like, it's basically zero now. So listing, no listing, why? Ghosting, why? Not talking about it, why? It's curious. The mind boggles. Providing support to things, why? Wallets come to mind with that. And I do wonder, if from here we still don't see the, I guess, quote unquote mainstream crypto adoption. Like you don't see it on Cash App or crypto.com or Coinbase or those sort of platforms. Why is it that? Why is that? Is it because people aren't paying to have it listed, and therefore it's not going to list? And then the old Hexkin in me, the old Hexkins would understand that. Well, that's what happens. That's kind of how the system works. The new people who are looking for shiny objects, who just are in Pulse Chain, may not fully understand that. Maybe they haven't got the mindset to try and understand that. So there's a whole spectrum, I guess you call it, of people in Pulse Chain and their knowledge about how, not how the world works. It's not like, oh man, this is how the world works. How cryptocurrency systems overlap one another, and how marketing works, and how business works, and how listings work, and how processes work. Because then you could break down and go, this is why influencers don't talk about this, because they don't get paid to. This is why tokens don't get listed, because they don't get paid to. This is why ads aren't placed, because they couldn't, because of XYZ. Maybe that can change now. I don't know. Yeah. But then you see, that's a lot of things to think about if you're just wanting a quick, 1,000 billion X on your meme coin, and you're not really looking at, some huge legal precedent set for open source and free speech. Most people aren't. And then maybe the people that are, for some reason, they just hate the Hexkins with a passion because some people trolled them on it. I don't know what you guys did, man, but I kind of feel like you broke some people, burned some bridges on the way doing it. Which was, I gotta say, it's kind of funny when you think about it, like from a business point of view. It's like, you go around burning bridges everywhere. But yeah, I'll look at the chat and then wrap this one up because I don't know. I just think from here, going back to price action alone, I think from here, price go up into the right forever would be the ultimate troll on the entire cryptocurrency community. The sacrifice phase was funny enough. People thought it was like some scam or something. It turns out, it was an actual win for free speech. Like the precedent was like set, for open source and free speech and like all this crazy shit. So it would be funny if we see Hex to go to like $100, for example. People, centralized exchanges not listing and people not understanding how to interact with the smart contract on multiple chains. You'd be like, so you had the chance to buy this when it was like, under a cent. And now it's like $100 and you still can't even figure out how to buy it. Meanwhile, I'm guessing there'll be some people providing liquidity, getting INC, interacting with the contract. It's been operating flawlessly on multiple chains as long as it has existed. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what this stuff's worth in maybe 6 months' time. Let's have a look. It's best to broaden the issue, hopefully get people to look at it more. Yeah, I don't know how though, man. Like, this is the thing. Like, I'm being summoned. All right. All right. That's my timer. My timer's gone off. All right. I'm gonna wrap it up here. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe, just maybe, we should all troll the entire crypto community and be like, we fucking told you so. We won. We're going to keep winning and winning and winning and winning and winning and winning. Price go up to the right forever. God bless Hex. All right, peace. I'm out. See ya. Bye. And thank you for tuning in, guys, and commenting. Appreciate it. Now, if I can end my live stream, that would be good. If I can figure out how to end. I seriously can't even find the end button, man. End stream. All right. Peace.